This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic!
What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is April 7th. 2025. Jonathan Osborne here. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty well. Quite an eventful week in Magic basketball world, but an even more eventful week or two ahead for the Magic. I mean, we're down to the wire. Last 1 week of the season, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just realized this. The season ends on Sunday. That's crazy. Yeah, a lot happening, a lot around the corner. Magic locked into a play-in spot, first time ever. So no more 6 seed talk for me. All right, you don't have to hear any more. But yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
Don't forget the Florida Gators in the national championship game on Monday.
That I forgot about that. I forgot that's the thing. That's the thing. Well, I just college sports not really my thing. So.
Man,
hey, we'll see how they do.
Yeah. Congrats, obviously, to the Gators. I am pulling for the Gators on Monday, obviously. Kevin, not as much, maybe slightly less so.
This is the part when I edit this episode where I'll put that clip of you doing the war chant and the chop. Yeah, I'll put that in here right now. Yeah.
That was good time. Listen, somebody, in the dynamic where Luke was like, more involved in like the day-to-day in the show, like when you guys would go back and forth, the FSU UF stuff, somebody had to play devil's advocate, and I couldn't always take his side. I couldn't always take your side.
Right.
I kind of had to, bounce back and forth, At the end of the day, FSU UF winning a title, I'm not losing sleep at night, really, either way.
Yeah.
But if it's not the Tar Heels, which it might not be the Tar Heels for a very long time, the way that program is being run right now, but that's besides the point. Let's talk about something cool pretty quickly before we get into some other stuff that probably doesn't feel as cool. We dropped a new shirt. We talked about that on the last episode. Very similar to the long sleeve that we dropped back in December. But this is a short sleeve. It is black. The colors are switched up a little bit, so it looks better on the black tee. It's like a nice boxy drop shoulder fit. Really good quality shirt, really good quality print. We think it looks awesome. When we dropped the long sleeve back in December, we had quite a few people that were like, hey, this is amazing, but if it was black, I would buy it, or if it was a short sleeve, I would buy it. We put both of those together and made this, and we're really proud of it. And if you'd like to just check it out, see what it looks like, you can head on over to thesixmanshow.com/shop. The link will be in the podcast description and on YouTube. We've already sold some shirts so far. The pre-order is going to run until next Wednesday, April 16th, and then it'll be gone. So if you want to get that, be sure to get that soon, or it'll be gone and you won't be able to get it, and you'll be sad that you didn't get it. So, all right. Kevin doesn't have anything to say about the shirt.
They're great. They're going to be great. The other thing is I haven't seen it in person. Jonathan has seen them in person. So I trust. Look, Jonathan is way more fashionable than me. So if he says they're great, I trust him. But I am looking forward to getting my hands on one here soon.
Yeah, you're going to love it. And you love wearing black, so this is going to be right up your alley.
Black is right up my alley. So I am definitely fired up about this one.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, some news that came across the timeline on Saturday that was shocking and saddening and then kind of maddening the more information that we got. So I'm at the park with the kids on Saturday with Carmen, and the kids are running around the playground, and I get a notification from Jason Beatty, and I'm just going to read his tweet. The Magic announced they will honor public address announcer Paul Porter on April 9th as the 2024-2025 season will mark his final year. The team will conduct a search for a new public address announcer. And this is, I want to take a little bit of a quote from Alex Martins here. Paul has certainly left an indelible mark on our franchise. Simply, he will be missed but never forgotten. His iconic calls will certainly live on. So this really gave everybody the feeling that Paul Porter was retiring. I guess that was like kind of the original feeling around that. But it became pretty obvious when Paul Porter made a post to his Facebook stating that this was a team decision, not a decision from Paul Porter, that he's not retiring from that gig, and that he's also continuing his work with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in which he's been working, with them for years and years and years. And Paul Porter has been with the Orlando Magic for 36 years. He is the one and only PA announcer, for the Magic in its entire history. So then I guess the next thing that we can kind of go into is talking about Jason Beattie's article that came out later in the day, I believe it was. And then, this was, it was Friday that the news came out. Saturday was when the article came out. Excuse me. Had that mixed up there. The article from Jason Beattie, and I would encourage everybody to go and read it. I don't want to read through it word for word here, but to paraphrase, essentially Paul's side of things, right? There are two sides to every story, but Paul Porter's side is that the Magic came to him in June and let him know that this was going to be his last year. And he essentially expressed the desire to finish things out the way that he wanted to do it, at least another year or two, then would probably would retire at that point. And the team essentially said, no, we're heading in a new direction. We're moving on to this next chapter, etc. So obviously I'll share how I feel about this, but Kevin, going through Friday and then into Saturday, and here we are Sunday recording this, initial thoughts seeing the news, and then as more information has come out, how are you feeling now?
Initial thoughts, I don't want to say he's old, but I mean he's getting up there, right? I think we heard afterwards, he's 71, and so the idea of it being Paul Porter's last season, not necessarily a surprise, not that I think it should be, but it wasn't like I heard that and it just shattered my world. It was just okay, I mean, these things happen. Wish there was more time for a longer goodbye, but 2 games plus postseason, okay. And then as the first thing we found out was via his he made a post on social media, clarifying in shorter terms, hey, this was not my decision. It was a decision of the team. And we were like, that's a little bit disappointing. But then that article, like you mentioned, from Jason Beattie really kind of unpacks some of the layers. I'm sure there's more that we'll never know, but some of the layers to it. And it's man, I don't really love that. The fact that, he was, it was mentioned to him apparently last offseason that this would be his last year. And the fact that he wasn't really allowed to publicize that until this week, the last 2 games of the regular season, at least, I just don't like that. This is not somebody who you just hired last year and you're like, well, it's not working out. This is what we're going to do. He's been around for 36 stinking seasons. And in my book, if someone's still doing their job decently well, which I would certainly say Paul Porter is, and someone has given 36 years to an organization, he should be able to not necessarily dictate, exactly how he's going to go out, but have more of a say in how his time's going to be done. And so it's pretty frustrating, especially a very, I don't want to say he's a super, forward-facing figure, right? But he's a very public, person in the game day experience, right? Everyone knows that voice. And so, yeah, it's a strange way of handling it. I don't love it. Just really fast, the flip side of this, coin is, this does feel like, forget the Paul Porter thing for a moment. We are obviously entering a new era of Magic basketball. I mean, we kind of already have, but things are going to change. Things aren't going to be the same forever. David Steele is not going to be the voice of the Magic forever, right? Paul Porter, we knew wasn't going to be the playbook or the PA announcer for the Magic forever. And so all these things naturally are going to start changing. And so that in itself isn't a surprise, but maybe this feels a little more rushed than I think some people would have liked.
And there's some other elements, right? Like the Lightning and the Bucks. And over the years, he lives in Tampa, number one. And it has seemed like the Lightning, to a certain regard, had kind of priority for him. Like, he just wouldn't be at some Magic games. It's like, oh, hey, why isn't Paul here? Oh, he's doing a Lightning game tonight or something like that. And some people brought that up as like, oh, of course they're going to replace this guy. They're looking for somebody full time. Paul Porter has been doing that for like upwards of 30 years. It doesn't take you 30 years as an organization to come to a conclusion of like, oh, we're just doing this because of the fact that we need somebody more full time. Some people would say, oh, like, he's making, more mistakes or whatever, nowadays, which may be true, but it's never been something, in my opinion, that has like altered the game day experience for fans if he misspeaks or whatever. But then back to your point, Kevin, like, mistakes aside, one, the dude has been with the team for 36 years. And yeah, I do think he should have more say so when it comes to kind of riding off into the sunset on his career. And then just the fact that he expressed that he wasn't able to share this with anyone until recently. Really, his wife was the only person that knew. And the fact that, they are just kind of forcing him out, right? Like, and it does feel different, right? Like, more people, I think, are familiar with who David Steele is, probably, right? But David Steele is another person who is later in his career and isn't going to be around forever. But I don't, this is just my personal opinion, I don't know that they would handle kind of the same thing with David Steele. Like, say, hey, no, this is going to be your last season no matter what. I don't really know that I would see that. But again, David is more of a, public and front-facing figure, I guess, because he's broadcast across the country and across the world, on a almost nightly basis. But fans are really upset about this because it's something else on the list of things that have happened, like, not in the super distant past, like somewhat recent things, where it just seems like the organization is slightly or just kind of missing the mark in terms of what fans want. And if they're looking for someone who maybe at this point is, I don't know, quote unquote, better or sharper or younger or whatever the case is as they go into this next chapter, like, I understand that in a certain regard. But like, I was thinking about it earlier today, and I'm thinking, not to compare Paul Porter not being the PA announcer to the Mavericks losing Luka Doncic, right? But that's kind of one of the more recent examples that we have. But if you ask any Mavs fan, like, hey, would you rather guarantee a championship right now without Luka or keep Luka and kind of roll the dice? They all would have said that they would keep Luka and roll the dice, because it's not always about winning or doing things at the highest level all the time. When you have someone who is as entrenched into the organization and what it means to be a fan, like, sometimes like that just transcends having and we don't know the truth, right? I don't think we really will have the entire story behind this, but why else would you move on from Paul Porter if it's not to bring in a fresh voice or a younger voice or whatever the reasoning could be from moving on from him, unless there's something like truly crazy that happened behind the scenes that we don't know about, which we have no reason to believe that. All we have is really at this point kind of Paul Porter's side of things. But I do understand why Magic fans are upset with this, because it just does feel like it's not like these massive, gross, like, injustices by any means, but it's just kind of like slight things along the way that it's like, man, like, are they really tuned into what Magic fans value and what Magic fans want? Like, we go back to the Dwight Hall of Fame induction on the night of the Lakers and the bobblehead being on that night. What was that, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that people were upset with it? It's things like that just kind of like, you just scratch your head a little bit. Like, what exactly is the thinking here when you're considering fans and some of these decisions, I guess?
Yeah, it's tough because, like you said, like, okay, let's say that the idea behind this is something new, something fresh. Again, going alongside this new era of Magic basketball, we're gonna change, the feel of the in-game experience by changing the PA announcer, right? So there's that side of it, but I don't know. It just feels like, let's say that's true. Let's say all these things are changing. Does it all have to change like now, right? Like even Paul said, like I'm just looking for like 1, maybe 2 more years. Like the fact that wasn't, honored is the part that just kind of, rubs me the wrong way. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm probably not, honestly, going to lose a lot of sleep over it. Unfortunately, it's just gonna be one of those things that it's done. Like it's done is done. And we, I think, can and should voice our displeasure with it. But at the same time, this was going to happen eventually. I just think he should have had more of a say in it. So am I upset? Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, this is an opportunity for Magic fans to make their voices heard with something like this. And, you and I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but we've talked a little bit about maybe making some noise this week. The 2 home games this week, maybe some chants, some things like that. I've got a couple things in mind to suggest to Magic fans for those games. But yeah, it's strange. It's sad. It doesn't feel necessarily like the right way this should have happened. But the decisions have been made, and I guess here we go.
Yeah, when the dude is devoted over half of his life and almost 4 decades to your organization,
right?
I again, we don't know the entire story, which part of it is just like, man, like what are we missing from this? Because at face value, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. 36 seasons, and a guy says, hey, I want to do another year or 2. When like, hey, is he still throwing 100 miles an hour? No, but like, that 89 mile an hour slider, like it still strikes some guys out. He's right. Still very good at what he does, in our opinion, at least. And he did mention that, the team has said like, he could be able to fill in from time to time. So, the next however long this season goes on for, if we host a play-in game or we have, playoff games at Kia this week, like the Celtics game, not going to be the last time that we ever hear Paul Porter's voice in Kia Center. But it doesn't really feel great, at least what we know now, and I don't know that, I have a pretty strong indication that we're not going to hear anything else on this moving forward. But yeah, like I totally 100% understand why fans are upset and why fans question sometimes, like, is the organization listening, and how much do they value, what fans want? And this is just one of those things that like fans don't want this. Like, just quite frankly, like fans do not want Paul Porter's exit to be going this way. So,
Jonathan, have you thought about this idea of an organized, I don't want to say it's not a boycott, but an organized demonstration at the game? Like, have you thought about a chant? I've thought a little bit about this. Like, how could Magic fans make their voices heard that they're unhappy with how Paul Porter is being shown the door?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. I more so my thought process and where my kind of heart would be in all of this is just for Paul to know how much he is like appreciated and loved by Magic fans.
Yeah.
So obviously like a Paul Porter, or a thank you Paul, or something like that. I thought of stuff like that, but no. What do you have in mind?
Well, I was thinking about. I'm a soccer fan, right? And typically in games in the Premier League, they will, if they have something like this, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, positive, celebration or a negative chant or whatever, they'll sometimes the fans will sometimes time it out with a certain number, right? Like, let's say they're chanting for a former player who passed away and he wore the number 11. So at the 11th minute, they'll either clap or cheer or chant or whatever, right? And I was like, okay, Paul Porter, what's a number? I was like, 36 years he was here. So what if 36 minutes in, the chant happens? And then I was like, wait a second. That's between the third and fourth quarter, Star Wars time. So I think it would be cool. Star Wars music happens. He does his thing. And then that's when, whatever it is, maybe it's thank you, Paul, or like you said, Paul Porter. Some people, I don't know. I doubt we could get the arena. I've talked about this before, and that's part of why we exist. There's not enough passionate Magic fans at Magic games, that can really get the whole building doing something, unfortunately. So I doubt we could get the whole arena chanting something negative. It's just not the way Magic games are. But yeah, a thank you, Paul, or, Paul Porter's name or something right after Star Wars music. I think it'd be awesome. It'd be amazing to see that the last couple games here.
Unfortunately, a lot of the fans in the building don't know his name.
Correct.
Most likely because they are very casual.
Exactly.
They know his voice. They know the stand-in cheer. They know all of that. But if you say, "Oh, you hear about Paul Porter?" They would just be like, "Huh? Who is that?" Because again, there just aren't. Maybe we're underestimating, but from all the time that we've spent in that building, that's kind of how I feel about it, unfortunately. But no, I think the it's the fourth quarter, stand and cheer. Like that would be the perfect time to start like a Paul Porter chant or a thank you, Paul, or something like that. Because he deserves it. 36 years and
how this? Can we just say? I don't want to be lame and be like, hey, if you're there, do this. But like, I feel like someone has to make a decision.
It needs to be organized.
Yeah. So I say thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. That sounds great to me. As long as you enunciate and it doesn't sound like you're saying F you, Paul.
Yeah.
Because some of those syllables are the same. But yeah, I think thank you, Paul would be very nice and very appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I really could go on and on and on about this, but I think we've made our point. And congratulations, Paul, on a fantastic career. Know he's going to continue great work with the Bucks and Lightning. I know we'll hear his voice in Kia Center again.
It's time for this week's Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week. Jonathan, this week might have had the most contestants we've had all season long. By my count, we had 5 worthy dunks that were up for consideration for this week's Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week. I think 4 of them were from the Wizards game on Thursday, which, maybe that says something. But Wizards not very good. But the Magic, a ton of dunks this week. A lot of them were a lot of fun, but probably the one that had to win. Like anytime it's a 360, it's going to get some extra points. And it was from Thursday's game in Washington. None other than Paolo Banchero himself with a 360. How did it happen? Wizards had the ball and they tried to make a lazy pass. And of course, KCP eats those for breakfast, snags it. And then Paolo Banchero is still back on the other end after the last possession. And that's where he's all by himself and is able to do a 362-handed throwdown. Not a bad jam for this week's Jam of the Week. Again, there were some other good ones. Paolo had a nice one. AB had a nice one. But again, 360, you got to give it to him. Big shout out to Jam Hot Chicken sponsoring the show all season long. We're big fans of them because they're big fans of this Orlando Magic fan community. You can find them on social media at Jam Hot Chicken. Worth a follow on Instagram, especially. Every time they post pictures or videos of their food, I get very hungry, so enjoy that. But if you want to visit them in person to try their food, you can find them at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. They're in beautiful Winter Park. Great place, outdoor seating. If it's a nice day, nice night, amazing place to go hang out with some friends, eat some good food. But yeah, big shout out to Jam Hot Chicken for sponsoring the show. And again, when you visit them, let them know the Six Man Show sent you.
This episode is also brought to you by Magic Matt, Gotham Grails, Ray Pastrana, Gear 95 Shred, and Only Franz. You might be asking, who the heck are they? These are some of our Hall of Fame and Elite Tier patrons, folks that help keep the lights on here. Just quite frankly, we can't do anything that we do without the support of our patrons. So we give a special shout out to some of our Hall of Fame and Elite Tier patrons each and every episode. And we give a special shout out to brand new patrons whenever we have them. So we want to give a very special shout out to Ricky Kelly, who joined the Patreon this week. Welcome to the family. Really appreciate your support. If you would like to help us continue the mission and do what we do, the best way to do that is to head on over to patreon.com/the Six Man Show. You can support what we do for as little as $2 a month. So we put out literally hundreds of hours of free content and more each and every season, but it's just not quite possible without the support of our patrons. So we would really love for you to join us in doing that again for as little as $2 a month. Like, That's cheaper than like a burger at McDonald's these days. So just less than one McDonald's cheeseburger a month, you can help support the show and do what we do. Or if you want to go a step further, and there are some other tiers with additional benefits like access to our awesome Discord community where people are talking all things Orlando Magic basketball and otherwise literally 24/7 around the globe. Every little bit helps. Can't thank our patrons enough. Again, if you would like to join in and help us do what we do, head on over to patreon.com/the6man show. Enjoy whatever tier, is best for you and works the best for you. Again, every little bit helps, and we appreciate all of our patrons so much. And now we're going to get back to the episode. On a little bit of a lighter note, we did get some really good news this weekend, and we've been waiting on it, really. Dwight Howard officially being inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield in the class of 2025. Very, 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 very much deserved.
Yeah.
Should be a top 75 guy. Wasn't voted top 75 for whatever reason. We probably know the reasons, strictly political. But just Dwight's having a heck of a 2 weeks here. Inducted into the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame, inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Super happy for him. Again, well deserved going in as a Orlando Magic. And yeah, I know that T-Mac went in, as a Magic, but just Dwight having been here longer and had more team success, it does feel a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, just super stoked for Dwight. And the fact that he asked Shaq on social media to walk him out at the Hall of Fame ceremony was pretty funny. I'll be shocked if that happens.
Yeah.
But congrats Dwight, man. It's awesome.
It's a big deal. Not like you said, not a surprise. We knew this was coming. And honestly, if he wasn't a first ballot, that would have been riot material, right? But obviously glad he was able to get that call. I'm sure that was very special for him, and I'm definitely looking forward to tuning into that ceremony. Trying to think what time of year is it usually? It's or have they announced when the date is? I wonder if they've announced that date. Because obviously I don't necessarily watch it every year, but it depends on who's getting inducted. But obviously I'll be tuning in for this one for sure.
September 6th.
Yep. Hey, we got it at the same time. September 6th, 2025. So yeah, sign me up. Maybe we can take a trip to Springfield. What do you think? 6-man show on the road, Springfield.
Do they let randoms into that?
I didn't say in. I said to Springfield.
Yeah, let's go to Springfield and just sit outside.
We'll set up shop in the parking lot. I'm sure there's a lot to do in Springfield. Great vacation spot.
We can go to the Hall of Fame. We can sit outside during the ceremony, and then we can leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man. No, that's great, though. Super, super happy for him. And it is a very strange feeling because, Dwight was my childhood and, growing up and stuff. And now he's old and retired and in the Hall of Fame now. That's making me feel a little old today. But, nevertheless, very excited for him and glad to have another Magic representative there.
Well, with, March Madness been going on the last few weeks, I saw a tweet a couple of weeks ago. It was don't look up how old Jimmer Fredette is. Jimmer Fredette is now 36 years old.
Yeah, okay.
So it's just the fact that we're really getting to the point where we're seeing these guys, not only their entire careers, but we're seeing them play in college, witnessing their entire playing careers, and then seeing these guys retire.
Yep. And go to the Hall of Fame.
And go to the Hall of Fame and and go into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's definitely tough. And not to bring it back to the Paul Porter thing, but as I was thinking about that and I was thinking of the Luka thing and thinking about Dwight and all that, would I rather have just kept Dwight here, even if maybe after that 2012 season, he was still pretty good in some of the LA and some of the Houston years, but was never quite as good? Would I rather him just have stayed here and never left, even if, the teams wouldn't have ever been that good again? I would have liked him to just stay. And the more that I thought about it, Dwight left right as the super team era was starting. So who's to say that if Dwight doesn't leave, that maybe we're not able to eventually, bring another superstar here and make another couple of runs at it. Even if Dwight wasn't the 1A guy,
right?
I still think that, I don't know. I don't want to go down that road. But for our younger listeners who maybe weren't old enough to witness Dwight in his prime, Dwight was legitimately like a top 2 or 3 player in the NBA for like a 3-year stretch there. Yeah. Like right behind the LeBron Jameses, right behind the Kobe Bryants. Like Dwight was legitimately one of the very best players in the entire NBA. Like the way that, people talk about Embiid or Giannis or whoever, like that is how we were talking about Dwight, 2009 to, 2011, 2012. The dude was genuinely that good and that special and was a no-brainer as a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and did it all in Magic uniform. That's what makes it so special. And like I said, that's what's going to make that ceremony so special because, people, may have different views of Dwight, LA, Houston, ended up Atlanta, Charlotte, he's, those like the Shaq, like rainbow memes, where he wore like every color, like Dwight got pretty close, but obviously above all else, he'll be remembered for his time in Orlando when he was absolutely dominant. And so to have one of us, as they say, going to the Hall of Fame in September is going to be really cool.
Yeah, and the fact that at the end played for the 76ers and the Wizards and all of that. Like, I was looking through like Dwight stuff, like the week after the Hall of Fame, and especially like the Atlanta, the Wizards, the Philadelphia stuff. I had some reason I had blocked all that stuff from my memory. But yeah, there's not a debate like there is with other guys. T-Mac, I don't really think there's a debate, but obviously like some of his most iconic stuff, like the 13 points in 35 seconds or whatever, he was in a Rockets jersey for that. And a lot of people remember obviously like the T-Mac and Yao Ming Rockets teams because he had more team success in Houston. But with Dwight, like there's no argument whatsoever. Like you remember him as playing for the Magic.
Yeah. Last thing before we get into the weekly state of the Magic, Jonathan, big news Sunday night. Your Osceola Magic advancing to the G League Finals. They won the Eastern Conference Finals Sunday at home over the Celtics affiliate. What are they called? The Maine Celtics or something like that? Maine, I don't know what they are. They're the team from Maine. They're with the Boston Celtics organization. They won 135 to 122. Mac McClung with 42 to send his team to the final. It's amazing. Ethan Thompson also contributed 20. As did Jalen Slauson. So that trio combining for 82 points. That's insane. But yeah, shout out to the Osceola Magic. And if you're unfamiliar, the G League Final is a best of 3 series. I don't know. I was looking at this before we started, Jonathan. I don't know who's going to have home court because the 2 teams in the Western Conference Final are 22 and 12. The Osceola Magic are 22 and 12. All 3 with the same records. I have no idea how they're going to decide who gets home court advantage, but either there will be 2 or 1 home game this week for the Osceola Magic in the G League Finals. Pretty exciting stuff, and shout out to Mac McClung for making that run. And yeah, 42 points to send your team to the championship round is pretty sick.
Yeah, absolutely balling. 42 points, 16 to 27 from the floor. Jalen Slauson, Ethan Thompson both adding 20, and then Myron Gardner and Javonte Smart both adding 17. I mean, Mac went off, but really, Jamal Mosley would love this. This was like a by committee effort. Yeah, a big win over the Maine Celtics. And yeah, they won one, a few years back as the then Lakeland Magic. So yeah, let's bring a championship to, Osceola and back to, I don't want to say the real Central Florida because that's a little bit disrespectful to Lakeland, but, bring another championship home to Central Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, Kev, let's jump into the weekly state of the Orlando Magic. This week, the Magic went 2-1 with a loss to the Clippers, and then following that up with wins over the Spurs and Wizards. At the time of this recording, at 38 and 40, the Magic are 7th in the Eastern Conference. They're now a game up on Atlanta, 2 games up on Chicago, and 3 games up on Miami. On the season, the Magic are now 27th in offensive rating with a rating of 108.7 and 3rd in defensive rating with a rating of 109.2 and 17th in overall net rating with a negative net rating of 0.5. But since the All-Star break, offense is playing a little bit better, 21st in the league in offensive rating with a rating of 112.3. 4th in defensive rating with a defensive rating of 110.4, and 14th in overall net rating with a positive net rating of 1.9. Clean injury report, other than the two, the two-way guys, the G League guys, Jalen, Mo Wagner, obviously. But 4 games remaining coming down the stretch here, Kevin. Obviously, we're going to take a look at the week ahead in just a little bit. But before we do that, we should go back to Thursday night as the Magic were taking on the Washington Wizards in Washington. And this absolutely was a must-win game. One, because of the just opponent and it not being a good team, but also because it is a division game. And at this point, Kev, if you split those last 2 games against the Hawks, you're guaranteed to finish with a better division record for them, which is important because if you finish tied record-wise with the Hawks and you finish tied head-to-head, it's going to come down to the division record. So if you split with the Atlanta Hawks, you will, really at that point, you will guarantee that you have the tiebreaker, because the worst you can do is split the season series at that point. You'll have the better division record. So that Washington game absolutely was a must-win for the Orlando Magic. And good start to this one. Had as much as a 19-point lead in that second half in the third quarter before they had a bit of a third quarter collapse. Washington was able to get that lead down to 6 before the Magic were able to have a strong close to the end of that third quarter, and then really just took over in the fourth quarter on the way to a 109-97 win over the Wizards, which is ironic because you and I on the last episode, we said this needs to be at least a 12-plus point margin of victory for the Magic, and they were able to do that. Mm-hmm. Paolo Banchero, absolutely fantastic in this one. It was 33 points, 18 rebounds for him. Franz Wagner was really solid as well. Wendell Carter Jr. had some big shots down the stretch for the Magic. Didn't get a ton of production from the bench necessarily, but just got enough from those other guys outside of Paolo and Franz. Those guys combined for 60 points. And again, Paolo set a career high with 18 rebounds. He was awesome, just really aggressive on the boards. He goes 8 of 10 at the free throw line. Franz is 4 of 4 at the free throw line. KCP 6 of 6. So knocked down those. And really the only reason that the Wizards were really even close in this game was Bub Carrington, career high 32 points, 12 of 18 from the floor, and 7 of 10 from behind the arc. I was definitely getting some Jaden Hardy PTSD from that Dallas game a couple weeks ago, but wasn't pretty. The full 48 minutes, the Magic had some good moments, some bad moments. But what we've been saying, Kev, this time of year, just needed to get a win. We set the market. Hey, this needs to at least be a 12-point, victory, and it was. So they really did everything that we asked for at the end of the day, and got a much-needed win.
Yeah, they definitely the entire team definitely clearly listens to the show, and so they heard the number and they wanted to get it. No, just kidding. Yeah, obviously you'd like for it to be a little more comfortable. Wizards are not a good basketball team, but like you said, Bub Carrington was outrageous, couldn't miss all night long, and some of those shots are really tough. So I'll give him some credit. But yeah, at the end of the day, you hold a team under 100 points. But I say that, but I also their injury list for this game was outrageous. They were missing, I think it was 7 out of their 8 tops. I don't know if it was top contributors or top scorers or whatever the stat was. Insane tanking going on by the Wizards because they had just won the night before over Sacramento, and so they were like, nah, forget this, everybody's out tonight. So
this wasn't the Magic versus the Wizards, this was the Magic versus the Capital City Go-Go. Speaking exactly. Of G League, yeah, we were playing a G League team on Thursday night.
Yeah, that was wild. But 2 things I want to point out from a Magic perspective. Number 1, Paolo, 33, 18, and 8. That is 18 rebounds for Paolo, man. Insane stat line for him. Going crazy on the glass. But the other guy I have to point out, Jonathan, this is 3 games in a row that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has played pretty well, right? He obviously had that huge game against San Antonio on Tuesday, 7 of 9 from 3, big time. But remember the day before, that was the day before. The Clippers game the day before. Shot the ball perfect, 3 of 3 from 3. And on this game Thursday, only took 2 threes. You'd like to see more, but yeah, 50% from 3. So over 3 games, he shot 11 of 14 from 3. That's pretty outrageous, you know? So shout out to KCP. Obviously, we've given him a lot of flack this season, and a lot of it rightfully so. But shout out to him. 3 games in a row. If he can keep playing well, it's going to be huge for this team.
Well, so the Magic at the end of that third quarter had a 5-point lead going into the fourth. And I know this is a guy who, has really been up and down, especially lately. But Jonathan Isaac, really came into the game in, the fourth quarter and really, had, I think it was, 2 blocks and 2 steals in the first 2 minutes. And now all of a sudden, off of that second steal, the Magic were up 12, 2 minutes into that fourth quarter. So that's what we've been looking for, right? Like that game-changing defense. He came in and gave you that. Didn't do much else after the 2 minutes there. Played 13 minutes in this game. But again, we have to keep the opponent in mind. But it was nice to see him come in and have a really impactful run there. So again, this was a huge win. Needed it. I know we're going to talk about the schedule the rest of the week here. But just thank goodness they took care of business and still really controlled their own destiny heading into this final week.
Yeah, and again, regardless, you just had to win that game. So they won the game. May not have been pretty, may not have been perfect, but you got the win. Huge for not just the standings, but like you said, the division. And so ready to see how they respond this week.
All right, this week. No game today, as you're listening to this on Monday. So the Magic have, had 4 days off here in between games to let the rest of the league catch up to them finally.
Yeah.
It took until game 78 for the entire league to catch up to the amount of games that the Magic have played. All season long, the Magic have been top 2 or top 3 or at the very top of the league in games played, while other teams, I think there was a point in December where we still had played 6 or 7 games than some of the other teams in our conference. But finally, we're here last week of the season. All is considered even at this point. Tuesday at home versus Atlanta, the first night of a back-to-back, home, back-to-back. Home Wednesday versus Boston, fan appreciation night, the final game of the season. And then you go to Indiana on Friday. And then you leave Indiana, fly to Atlanta, probably spend Saturday there, and then they play. Yeah, it's a super early, start time on Sunday, so of course they'll be there a full day before. But in Atlanta for the regular season finale, and there is a somewhat significant chance that game is going that the season is going to come down to that final game essentially.
Well, yeah, seeding, I would say. Obviously the Magic are locked into the play-in, so they'll have postseason basketball. But you're right, as far as where and when and how they'll play, may come down to that.
If we go into Atlanta and lose a play-in game, and then we host Chicago or whoever we lose, we'll be like, hey, if we just would have beat Atlanta in that last game and had home court advantage, we might be in the playoffs rather than in Cancun.
Right.
So just sweep Atlanta here this week, and you're essentially the 7th seed and good to go. Don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But I did want to talk a little bit about Boston and Indiana, and in terms of are these games really going to matter? Game's not going to matter to Boston whatsoever. I think you and I don't know if we talked about it on the last pod or maybe we were having that conversation off air, but the scenario that the Celtics are going to find themselves in, if there is the chance that if they beat us, it gives us a better chance to be the 8th seed, and then might have to go up against Cleveland in the first round versus the Celtics, or they may say, hey, we actually want this Orlando team to be the 7th seed, so we get them in the first round, so we're just going to rest everybody. But in terms of the standings, they're 4.5 games back of Cleveland, and they're 8.5 games up on New York. So Boston is 100% locked in to that 2 seed. And then Indiana, they're 3 games back of New York, and they're 3 games up on Milwaukee. That Indiana game probably isn't going to mean a ton to them. They're going to be locked into the 4th seed almost.
Here's the thing. I don't want to rain on your parade. The Celtics are 4 games back of the Cavs, and there's 4 games remaining. So if the Celtics go 4-0 and the Cavs go 0-4, they could They could get the 1 seed. I'm just kidding.
I know you all listening to this pod. Kevin has spent the last month trying to convince me that the Magic still had a chance at the 6th seed.
And they did.
And then has spent the last week and a half trying to convince me that the Magic still had a chance at the 6th seed because the walls were falling off, or the wheels were falling off of the Milwaukee Bucks.
That's right.
And here we are today, 100% locked into the play-in.
But hey, we only got locked in 9 days before the season was over. So we were there. We were right there, Jonathan. We were right there. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. You're right. It's going to be very interesting. What's more interesting to me, Jonathan, this week is this layoff. This team has not played a game since Thursday. You know? Like, how is this team going to look on Tuesday? Number one, because it's a big game. Number two, because Atlanta will be in more, I don't want to say game shape. It's not like the team's got out of shape, but like more maybe mentally sharp because they've played a normal schedule over the weekend. You know, I think they played today. They played today because they had a back-to-back. Yeah, they played New York yesterday, Utah today, and then they play us Tuesday, right? So that's a pretty typical NBA schedule. So I'm very interested to see how they come out on Tuesday. Luckily, it's at home. I think that'll be in their favor. And again, 3rd game in 4 nights for the Hawks. Hopefully it goes the Magic's way. But yeah, this is a big week. Atlanta.
Boston. 2-5 in their last 7, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. And I know one of their wins today was against Utah. So one of those 2 wins was Utah at home. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, Atlanta, Boston, Indiana, Atlanta. Big week. You ready to make your prediction? What do you think is going to happen?
Man, I think the Magic are going to go 3-1 this week.
Okay.
I think 3-1. Okay, I'm going to go 2-2. My heart says 3-1. My head is going to say 2-2. I think they beat Atlanta on Monday, and then I think they beat the Celtics on Fan Appreciation Night, the last game of the season, because I fully expect the Celtics to be sitting all of their guys for the most part, or something where like they really only play the first half. And if you win those 2 games, I'm pretty sure that locks up the 7th seed.
Let's see here. According to my calculations,
because at that point, the best Atlanta can do is tie you, and you'll own the division tiebreaker.
Right. Well, the weird thing is, right now we also can't rule out the Bulls. Like the Bulls are on fire. They're only 2 games back. So, and they own the tiebreak with the Magic, right? Pretty sure they do. They were 2-1 against us, or were we 2-1 against them? Hold on. Really fast. Let's see, Orlando. They are 2-1.
No, they hold the tiebreaker, the head-to-head tiebreaker.
So so 2-2 technically keeps Chicago still in it, but it's a long shot. But yes, if you win these first 2 games here, you'll be in pretty good shape. If you get 3 wins, you are guaranteed the 7th seed for sure. You know, because the Bulls are 2 games back. Miami's not catching you. So yeah. But yeah, that's where I'll say we are.
And looking at the Bulls schedule, they have Cleveland, Miami, Washington, Philadelphia. So if they lose to Cleveland and the Magic win Tuesday and Wednesday, the Magic are the 7th seed.
Yes.
I do think the Magic can sweep the Hawks, right?
Yeah.
I would like to say you sweep that, but just Trae Young and Atlanta just always seems to give us problems. I mean, how many game winners? I know DeJounte Murray's not on that team anymore, but it just feels like every time we play Atlanta, it comes down to the final, few possessions. So I think you just end up splitting it, the way that these teams typically play each other. And then I think you find a way to split that, Boston, Indiana, because I just don't think those games are really going to matter. Like, especially the Indiana game, I could see Indiana just playing all of their bench guys, and like we don't see Tyrese Halliburton, we don't see Pascal Siakam in that game. Let me take a look at Indiana's schedule this week. So they're playing the Nuggets right now, and then they have Washington, Cleveland, Orlando, Cleveland. And that last that game on April 10th, which when they play us, it's the second night of a back-to-back. But that game against Cleveland is going to be on TNT. So they're probably going to have a little bit of pressure to play those guys. And then being as how the standings and seedings aren't really going to matter to them at that point, it's the second night of a back-to-back. We probably don't see their main guys.
Maybe.
There's a chance you go 4-0 this week. I'm not going to rule that out either. Anything less than 2-2 is unexcusable.
It's stressful. Also, that'll get stressful. If this team goes 1-3 or worse, that's going to be really stressful. Yeah. Okay, my turn. I really think this team. I'm going to pick them to sweep the Atlanta thing first.
I like it.
I think they can do it. Honestly, I'm more scared about Tuesday than I am about the following Sunday. Which
because of the layoff.
Because of the layoff, exactly.
Well, I mean, if we go back to the last 3 seasons, the Magic's record when they have more than 2 days rest is abysmal.
Well, this season it's 0-0 because I feel like we've never had that 2 days rest. But yeah, I mean they have had a couple. All right, so I'm going to say we beat both Atlanta games. I'm not convinced Boston's going to be resting guys this early. So I think, well, on the one hand, Jason Tatum's out right now with the ankle issue, at least against the Wizards. I don't know if he'll still be sitting. So maybe I don't know. I'll just say I'll say
they play the Knicks on TNT on Tuesday. Then they have us on Wednesday, second night of a back-to-back, and then they finish the season at home, Charlotte.
Right now, that weekend. They're resting people.
Well, sure. I'm just saying that they might just decide the second half of that Orlando game, like, hey,
you're right. The second night of a back-to-back, yeah, I can get behind that. I'll go 3-1. I'm going to say Atlanta, Boston, Atlanta.
And the fact that we have, I know, sorry to cut you off. I know, we have the Celtics on the second night of a back-to-back, but the fact that, the Celtics and the Pacers both get us second night of a back-to-back, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah. I'm going to say 3-1. You win both Atlanta games and the Boston game. The only thing that's holding me back from more confidence with the Boston game, if things currently hold and the Magic advance to the play-in, they're playing the Celtics in the first round. Now, do the Celtics, there's 2 ways they could do this. They could say, hey, we need to send a message and scare the crap out of them and just beat them up so they feel hopeless when they come face us in the playoffs. Or the opposite, hey, we're not showing our hand at all. Then it goes back to your point. We're resting guys. We're not doing anything. That's a good point. All right, 3-1. I'm locked in.
I think the Celtics have their eyes on a bigger prize than just beating the Magic in the first round.
Yeah. Sleep on us, Boston. Sleep on us. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, man. If the roles were reversed, we would not be like, oh, we need to show them. We would be very confident that we're going to roll them regardless.
Yeah. We'll see.
No. Seriously, let's do a thought exercise here. If the roles were reversed and the Magic were coming off of a title and we were going up against a team fighting for its play-in lives at the end of the season, how would you feel about that? How would Kevin Tucker approach that situation?
I would be aware that this Magic team, when healthy, is not a 40-win team. That's what I would make myself aware of.
This Magic team is not going to be healthy in 2 weeks in the playoff series either.
I know. But I think this team is probably a little bit better than its record. And so, but no, in the long run, you're right. They're not going to lose sleep over it. But there is a little bit of gamesmanship involved with this, right? They're going to have to make a decision. And we'll see how that goes.
Have we really only played the Celtics twice this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, this is going to be the third meeting. Yeah, and we snuck one out in December, and then they pantsed us on national TV in January.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
How can I forget?
All right. Yeah, it's crazy. Final week of the season. Here we are. I know, prepping for the show, I was like, oh, we have a week and a half left. And it was like, no, this actually is the last week, the last 4 games.
Yep.
We got another kind of day of rest here coming up on Monday. And then, right into it. What is it? Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
Yep.
And then we talked about this a little bit. Is it the 15th would be the playing game Tuesday?
The 7-8 game is Tuesday, April 15th. The 9-10 game is Wednesday, April 16th. And then the 8th seed game is Friday, April 18th. So those are the dates. Hopefully, all we have to worry about is the first one, Tuesday the 15th. If we're in that and we win it, we move on. But man, That would be insane if we end up having to play that 8th seed game. That
you and I haven't talked about this. Would you come down for a home playing game?
I've thought about it. The hard thing is I have a like 14-hour workday on Saturday. So if I did that, I don't know. I don't know if I could, but maybe I might have to think about it. It's history.
Well,
we've never done that before.
But the playing game would be Tuesday, right?
No, I thought you were saying the Friday game.
Oh, no, I'm talking about if the Magic are hosting the 7-8 game.
No, I can't do that. I got work stuff. I can't do that. But
dang.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
the Friday one, maybe. I would just be miserable.
I'm contemplating it. I'm contemplating it. And some of you might be thinking like, oh my gosh, how would you not go to that game? Well, it's kind of dumb, but it's like, well, if we lose, there's going to be another game. Like we would host another game if we lose that game.
Right.
But then it's also like, well, we're hoping that we've got a competitive playoff series where we can at least go to a couple of games. And folks, I don't have to tell you all. I know tickets ain't cheap these days. So,
yep.
Yeah, definitely. I've got to think about it. It also would be a situation where I would have to work all day and then fly over there, kind of last moment. I wish I could fly. It would be a lot easier.
So, your private helicopter just zip you over there real fast.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, Kev. Anything else that we need to go over before we wrap this up?
Nah, let's get out of here.
All right, just a quick reminder again, the shirts, if you guys want to take a look at those, you can head on over to our social media channels. Obviously, we'll put the description in the podcast episode description and the YouTube description. Or if you want to head over and just check it out and buy one, head to the6manshow.com/shop. Again, those will be up for pre-order up until April 16th, and it'll be about like 6 to 8 weeks, if we're able to get those in your hands quicker, we will. But probably just plan on, that time period to get those. So appreciate everybody that's supporting. As always, thank you all for listening. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See you.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!